we just heard that we are going to merge with another Tableau user group. So it's going to be pretty exciting going forward. So we have a great event today, and we've been implementing Tableau, most of us online, on-prem, and we cater both private sector and public sector Tableau user group. And most of the public sector users, they want to know more about how the data security and how to implement GovCloud and FedRAMP and CG's data. So, this time we are very fortunate to have our keynote speaker, David McCurdy, to speak about how AWS makes huge difference in this GovCloud and FedRAMP space. So we have a special guest today, David McCurdy. I have known him for a few years, and he has lots of experience with public sector. So let me just give, right now, David is an executive government advisor at Amazon Web Services, guiding state and local government executives through strategy, policy, and governance challenges to help accelerate their cloud journey. David brings 20 years of experience in transforming technology across the government, healthcare, telecommunication industries. Previously, David spent 5 years serving as Chief Technology Officer for state of Colorado, leading their digital transformation. And prior to that, 10 years of technology transformation at Catholic Health Initiatives, serving 104 hospitals across 17 states. So it's been quite a journey, and please help me welcome David, who is going to talk about all the stuff we want to hear. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Srini. Let me bring up my presentation here real quick. So thank you for having me. Thank you for having AWS to your user conference. I actually didn't realize it, but this is my second time presenting before this user conference. I spoke right after joining as Chief Technology Officer back in 2014. So I feel like I've been here since the beginning, Srini. So thank you for having me back. Very excited about this conversation. Tableau is a great partner of AWS. And hopefully we can have a great conversation today as we go through my slides. Srini gave you a little bit about myself and my history, but I wanted to talk about my journey with Tableau. And it really did start with the state of Colorado. We use Tableau at CHI, but in terms of direct involvement with Tableau, came because the Chief Data Office sat under me. And so we were responsible for setting data strategy from a data analytics perspective, from a big data perspective, all that kind of stuff. We found several of our agencies were already using Tableau, namely healthcare policy and finance and public safety. Now, I was a big believer, if our customers liked something, don't try to reinvent the wheel. I wasn't the kind of CTO that's like, no, it's got to be my decision. So let's go in a different direction. The customer really loved Tableau, and so I asked my team to dive deep. What was it about Tableau they liked? And the thing we heard over and over is just easy to use. They love the dashboards. They love how data can be presented. But mostly it's the manipulation, the tools Tableau gives you to manipulate data, whether you're very technical or you're very new to computing. So out of that, I decided we were going to build an enterprise instance of Tableau on-prem with the collaboration of all of our agencies. Srinivas helped out. And so we stood up a brand new instance of Tableau in the enterprise. And the idea was, I didn't want to do a different procurement for every single agency in the state. I wanted a place where if a director in health or a director in public safety wanted to stand up a Tableau dashboard, they didn't have to go through the procurement process. They could just start working right away. So the first real project we put on there was the governor's dashboard. And I know Srini's probably talked about that before. He talked about it a lot with me. Like it was a very interesting project and highly successful. Those dashboards are still up and accessible to the public and to the governor's office. So you can go out and take a look at them. I'm sure Srini showed them to you already. But one of the things we ran into is we ran into performance issues with the amount of data that that the governor's office, that the state wanted to consume. So we added more resources, more servers, more CPU, more data on-prem to meet the need, and it grew more. And there was a night, I remember, I think it was back in 2017, 2016, where Srini and I talked about how we were going to solve this problem, because we had just reorganized all the governor's dashboards into Tableau. We had made them public. They were being consumed in an amazing way. Like, that's success, right? When they consume so much that they crush the servers underneath them. And I had started working with AWS a little bit on the health side of the fence. And so I just made the call one night, we're gonna make a hard shift to AWS and see if this can solve our problems. And it did. We were able to move the workload over a weekend. And then we were able to give the citizens of the state of Colorado the speed and the access that they wanted to see, the speed and access Tableau wanted to expect. And more importantly, we had the ability to scale as big as we needed to, as small as we needed to. And that's the power of the cloud, is it's essentially almost unlimited resources to grow. And then when you don't need that, you can shrink back down and your bills scales with that. So that was really my first foray into working with Tableau. I'm gonna shift to Dish a little bit. After leaving the state of Colorado, I moved to Dish Wireless. I don't know if that's an official term yet. Most people know it as Dish Network, the satellite TV company. But if you've read the news over the last 2 years, Dish owns billions of dollars worth of 5G spectrum, and they're in the process of launching the first 5G integrated mobile network, and they're going to be a carrier very similar to what you think about Verizon AT. And I had the pleasure and opportunity to be there at the ground floor when they start designing this business, acquiring customers, that type of stuff. And so we looked at what we wanted to do from a technology stack perspective. Very different than public sector in the state of Colorado, where, you know, moving to the cloud, I took a very kind of cautious. I went to the CIO at the time. It's like, I want to do everything in the cloud. Like, I don't want anything on-prem. I want everything born in the cloud or of the cloud. He's like, no problem. And I was like, this is shocking. I really like private sector. This is going to be good. But part of that is we decided we were going to put most of it in AWS. It was a multi-cloud hybrid environment. But Tableau was a core piece of that. We wanted to give very compelling, easy to read dashboards to our customers, which were going to be the business units inside of Dish Wireless. So how many new customers signed up, was the average hold time, you know, costs, finances, all that stuff, backed by AWS, but presented and manipulated through Tableau. Very compelling, that entire stack from retail. So you think going into a store, to the tower network, pieces of it are already stood up, and there's going to be a major announcement. I think the first city to go live will be Vegas next year. So very excited to see when that city launches. And, you know, everything behind the scenes is being visualized with Tableau and powered by AWS, from the tower network to the retail data. So it was an amazing opportunity. I'm glad I had the pleasure to work in that. And then finally, where I am today, you know, everybody thinks of AWS as this large cloud. We have amazing tools, but what they don't think about is the partner community behind AWS. And we consume our partners' technology, and they consume our technology, and it's a great partnership. I'll talk about it a little bit later in the slide. But on the team I work in, we use Tableau every day to show the data of how we are delivering for our customers, things we need to change, trends. You know, it doesn't really matter what company you go to. 99% of them, there's a team in there that is leveraging Tableau, and they're using it to accelerate their business. But let me back up a little bit. for individuals that don't know what AWS is a division of Amazon. And I think most people know who Amazon, so I won't spend too much time on that today, but you know, all the trucks rolling up and down your street every day delivering packages, things that you may have ordered even, you know, an hour ago to 24, 48 hours. Amazon's revolutionized how to buy and sell products. AWS is the division inside of Amazon. It stands for Amazon Web Services, and it's essentially the division that drives the website, all the delivery trucks, everything logistically behind Amazon.com was born in AWS. And back over a decade ago, I think it was 2006, we said, hey, what we've built for Amazon.com is so compelling, I wonder if anybody else would want it. And that's when the cloud was born. And that's when AWS's division was stood up. And we started offering the same cloud services that we are offering Amazon.com to our customers. It started off as educational institutions that wanted to do big data projects. And now it's, you know, counties standing up call center solutions, or public safety departments moving their servers into the cloud. You name it, across the board, there's a huge shift over the last 5 to 10 years of customers moving into the cloud. So just, I won't spend too much time on this, but just understanding why AWS Cloud is a little bit different than some of the other partners out or providers out there. We have a concept of an availability zone. So if you look on the left side of the slide, we essentially choose a location somewhere on the planet, and we build multiple data centers within 60 miles of each other. So you have very low latency and you can protect the customer data. Not one, not two, typically 3 or more. In some of our big regions, it can be much more than that. But the idea is we can have a very highly available, very high performance data center network that customers can protect their data, all connected by fiber that AWS owns. And we call those availability zones. So you can choose an availability zone at that data center, all the data, compute and stuff like that, and they make what's in the middle a region. And so when you choose to use AWS services, you can choose one region or you can choose multiple regions. But inside of that region, you're gonna have multiple data centers protecting your data. And then on the right, you can see where the availability zones exist on the planet today. And it really is on the planet, and more and more regions are being built across the world. We can get you slides if you want to zoom into the US and see exactly where they are, that type of stuff. One of the things that isn't widely known because it's fairly new is there's some instances where you may not want to move an application or data set up into one of those regions. Maybe you're a correctional facility, 60 miles away from the nearest biggest city, or maybe that workload requires some compliance from an internal department or something like that, and it requires it to be in an on-prem data center. Well, AWS has built a rack called AWS Outposts that you can land really anywhere you need, and you're gonna have the power of AWS in your data center, and it's going to connect into one of those regions, and it's going to bring in services for you. But you can unplug it from a wall, or you could unplug it from the network, and you could still operate inside of that, that zone that you've created, whether that's, a prison system or a public safety system, or, maybe you're building some satellite installation. It's a very compelling use case for low latency applications, or a place where you want to have data very far away from like a metropolitan area or something like that. We also have this idea of these local zones that are popping up, and these are mini clouds that are popping up in cities across the United States. Once again, if customers want to be a little bit closer than to the data rather than the big regional approach I showed earlier. I talked a little about it before, but AWS has built an enormous marketplace, very similar to what you see on the Amazon.com side of the house. I don't think most people know it, but most people think Amazon is selling products on behalf of themselves, but actually most of what you buy on Amazon.com is sold by third parties. So they use the Amazon marketplace to sell their own products. Very similar to that in AWS, we allow the Ciscos of the world, we allow the top cyber companies, we allow the big productivity companies like Adobe and Tableau to come in and use our cloud and provide amazing services to our customers. If you go into AWS Marketplace, you'll find over, I think it's 10,000 partners that have started moving their solutions into our cloud or have moved their solutions in the cloud. And in some cases, it's a couple of clicks before you can start accessing their services. But as Srini said today, I wanted to talk a little bit, I know there's a mix between engineers, executives on this call, so all walks of life, but what makes AWS different? Why are we designed to run the most important workloads in the world, as well as some of the most sensitive workloads in the world? And so I'll start with what we call the shared responsibility model. And it's really one of the number one questions we get from our customers is, do you have access to our data? And is our data secure? And the short answer is, yes, your data is secure. AWS is going to secure your data from, think about the server down. You can see compute, storage, network, availability zones, the data centers. We're going to provide that level of security. And then as you add operating systems and software on top of that, that is the customer's responsibility. And the reason we've designed it that way is for the first question, do you have access to our data? The answer is no. I'll dive a little bit deeper into that, but this allows us to meet some of the strictest compliance guidelines out there, that we've created this separation. In no way, shape, or form do we want any access to the customer data. We want to protect it from really the server, compute, storage down, and we want to give the customer the ability to manage their application, the data the way they see fit. We've also built an entire segment of that regional architecture around what we call AWS GovCloud. So if you are a consultant, if you are an agency, and you're wondering what's the right place for my workload, application, or data set, one of the things you need to be aware of GovCloud. GovCloud is going to provide you certain compliances that allow you to host federal data, state data, agency data. I'll dive into some of the different compliances next, but you should, if you're working with some type of government, understand what's the best place. The public cloud, where you might see Netflix or Disney or something like that, is for data that doesn't have the same compliance needs. GovCloud is where you want to get those compliances. And I'll go to the next slide. This is a subset of the compliances that we fulfill today, and we've been doing longer than any other cloud out there. I'll point to really two on this chart. We can get you more if you're interested in whether compliance is followed. FedRAMP. So FedRAMP is a compliance that was set up by GSA, which is a division of the federal government, which provides technology to the other departments of the United States federal government. If you're going to be housing federal data in a cloud data center, it has to be FedRAMP compliant. And that applies to states as well. So let's say you're a consultant working with a state and you need to deal with health and human services data or criminal justice data or something like that. At the bare minimum, you're going to need to be putting that data set in FedRAMP. And that would be an opportunity to put in the AWS GovCloud. But on top of that, criminal justice data is even more sensitive. It's even harder requirement to get approved for cloud. And we have been, let's see here on the next slide. We have got letters from all 50 state attorney generals saying that the AWS cloud is CJIS compliant and you can store your CJIS data in the AWS GovCloud. Now, I'm going to caution you a little bit. CJIS is a policy that kind of flows down from the feds, but it's managed by each individual state or each individual agency. So if you went and worked with someone like the Department of Public Safety or the Department of Corrections or something like that, they're going to have a CJIS compliance officer, and they're going to set the requirements of how to protect data for that state. So when you work inside of a department of government, you need to know who that individual is or who that department is, and you need to work to understand, can you leverage X project or data set? Does it make sense in the AWS cloud? But the foundation's been laid, that it's been reviewed, and in government after government after government, we've seen that CJIS data can be hosted safely in public clouds, namely gov clouds, and it's passed. It's not 100%, it depends on the privacy officer, but there is a path for it. So why is AWS a little bit different, and why did we get letters from all 50 attorney generals across the United States saying it is CJIS compliant? Because at a hardware level, really at a silicon level, we've introduced some customized silicon called Nitro, and it's doing a couple things for you. I'll start in the middle. So we have a security chip in every single one of our servers that prevents AWS from having access to customer data. We encrypt from that chip all the way up the stack. The customer owns the certificates that's associated with that chip, and we have no ability. If a judicial system came to us and said, hey, get X customer data, we can't do it. The customer owns the data. That legal notice would have to go to the customer. They would have to pull down the data. So it is very different than any other cloud. No other cloud has this kind of custom silicon across the board that protects the customer's privacy and data. And we did that very meaningfully. We wanted to be able to say kind of firsthand, we cannot see your data. It's protected. It's yours to do with as you please. The other thing we put in the Nitro chipset is custom silicon to accelerate data sets. So a lot of times we're compared with other cloud providers from a cost basis, but one of the things you don't think about is the acceleration that we're giving at the data and CPU layer to accelerate databases or analytics and stuff like that. This is custom silicon. And so a lot of times our pricing's lower just because we can run workloads faster, because we are controlling the stack at a hardware level like no one else is doing. So I'm going to go back a little bit to kind of criminal justice data. This is a use case I found from 2019. This is Public Sector Summit in Washington, D.C., hosted by AWS. So we have a forum once a year just for public government institutions to come and talk about what they're doing in the cloud, what's coming down the pipe, what do they need from AWS. It's actually coming up again this May. So if there's any consultants on that want to do work with AWS and governments, if there are executives looking to move to the cloud, this is the right place to go if you're inside of government. But this use case directly is the criminal justice department, namely ATF, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, where they had a journey to the cloud. They moved 7 of their core systems, 11 applications, 700 plus 70 plus applications refactored very successfully. So even the federal departments that kind of set the tone for what criminal justice data is have started to move into the cloud. I think it's a very compelling use case, especially when you talk to individuals like say, hey, government data doesn't belong in the cloud. Well, the biggest government agencies are on the move. Every day there's more and more workloads, both from states, local, counties, cities, and the feds moving up into clouds. What about Tableau? Tableau, I found this on their website. They see Amazon Web Services as being the leader in public cloud since the beginning. We were the first cloud to come out. We've had a focus on public sector and government, and there's going to be a continued focus on that going forward. And these are some numbers, once again, pulled off of Tableau's website. So 2,300 government agencies, 7,000 educational institutions, over 22,000 nonprofits running Tableau in AWS GovCloud. I was shocked by these numbers. They're very compelling. It shows a couple of things. One, governments are moving into the cloud very fast, but Tableau on GovCloud is providing amazing services to our customers across the board. Gartner also recognizes AWS for the 12th consecutive year as the cloud leader. We have a spirit of innovation at AWS, so we're going to continue to innovate. We're going to continue to listen to our customers, and our goal is, next year to be 13th consecutive year. But we like to reference third-party information to show that, hey, Gartner, a company as everybody knows, they provide research reports. They continue to recognize us as having a substantial lead for the reasons I kind of gave you earlier, but also just the sheer number of services available to the customer. So if you need compute or storage or data, or if you want to run analytics in there, that's great. But once you do that, now you have 1,000 bolt-on services that you can bring to bear. You don't have to use them, but as your needs change, as your executives have more requirements, you have more options from AI, ML to quantum computing coming down the pipe, that type of stuff. So I was in the Midwest last year, and we were talking about this a couple months ago, we were talking about this conference coming up. And the quote he gave me is, the cloud is what frees Tableau. And I think most people's journey around Tableau is they start with a local server. It's so successful, they need more servers. And it's so successful, they have a whole rack. And then they typically don't get to the data center phase, but there's always this consternation on an on-prem environment. And as soon as you move Tableau up into the cloud, it explodes. And you stop running into the performance issues, but more importantly, you can start building the dashboards and doing cool things that you can never do on-prem because you're just always constrained. You jump one hoop and you got another hoop. And the cloud is what frees Tableau. I don't know anybody that's moved Tableau up to the cloud that didn't feel that same relief. Tableau Online. So you got the single server installation, then you get the enterprise installation. You make the leap to AWS, and now you're free. But what is Tableau Online? I think most people on this call have either heard about or are using Tableau, and this is basically a SaaS-based offering of Tableau. So rather than having your team have to manage the servers and the storage underneath all your data, now you can just go directly to Salesforce Tableau and start building in seconds. It is the future. The greatest thing about it is it's all built in partnership with AWS. So when you build stuff on Tableau Online, more than likely you're going to start building in AWS at the exact same time and never even know it. And that's the way we want it. We love calling out customer stories. Tableau is one of our customers as well. So back in 2016, Tableau Online started partnering with AWS to move to the cloud. So Tableau had this idea, hey, we want to make it simple, easy to start using their product. We don't want customers have to be building in their own data centers. So they spun up the Tableau. It grew so fast. Once again, they had the same problem. The scale of the number of customers moving on, they needed to make a hard shift, and they partnered with AWS to start moving in the cloud. They did a couple of pilots, and you guys can reach for yourself right here. They went so successfully, did a complete lift and shift. So every customer, every integration, every data set moved up to AWS, and these were the outputs. Tableau saw a 3 to 5 times improvement in visualization load times, dropped longest visualization load times from 6.6 seconds to 2.2 seconds. I'm not going to read all this to you, but they saw the same kind of improvements moving out of on-prem data centers into the cloud, and they never looked back. And I think this is the future of where they're going. I heard there's going to be some compelling announcements coming soon in this area, so I'm excited to see that. And with that, that's all I had. I really appreciate you guys having me here to tell you a little bit about AWS and why it might be the right place to land your workload. And why it may be the right place to land your criminal justice workload as well. So with that, thank you very much, Srini.
Thank you, David. We are in a conference and sharing the laptop. So it was wonderful presentation and a lot of information about GovCloud and FedRAMP, all the requests we get from our public sector users. So, now we can if you have any questions for David, please feel free to type your questions in the chat. That way we can ask David to answer anything related to the presentation we have seen. And we are very excited about what AWS is offering for several government and public sector clients, and good to know about the number of people who are using David. And also we are very excited about the Nitro chip. See, that's the main thing that we hear, like, hey, can AWS, do they have access to our data, right? So having you covered it, it's like, it's fully secured. And the biggest thing, like you have seen, we can scale up and scale down depending on the load and depending on the ETL processes that we do it. And I think most of the agencies and government organizations are moving into AWS cloud, and we are very excited about partnering Tableau and AWS and do this great offering. So let's see. Awesome. Any other questions? Anybody would like to ask David? While we are waiting, David, how is it, like, how do you tell difference between public sector and private sector? You have worked on both sides of the spectrum. So how do you see, coming to AWS, how are you seeing the difference?
Yeah, it's very interesting question, Srini. It was very hard. I was at the state of Colorado from 2014 to 2019. While I was there, I couldn't talk about data warehouses. We could talk about visualizing data. We could talk about delivering for our customers, but it was just a complete paradigm shift going to private sector right after that and having them saying anything you need to make it successful, right? Like you want to leverage whatever technology you need. Governments, what they say, sometimes 5-10 years behind, but COVID changed that. So after I left, COVID took all the roadblocks off. Governments were able to spin up new data sets in weeks, things that would have taken procurement 6 months to a year. It just changed the entire ball game. And so we saw entire call centers spin up in 2 weeks. We saw companies and organizations and public sector start moving huge data sets in the cloud because they couldn't scale, namely unemployment insurance systems. So you think about it, your workload goes up 10, 20, 30 times overnight. What are you going to do? You can't get hardware. There's a chip shortage happening across the world. Like, you were in a bind. And so we saw a fundamental change in how governments could respond with technology based off of government. And we hope that some degree of that will stay the same, because I think the innovation that happened over the last 2 years was very compelling. There's reasons why you don't want to have procurements overnight, but if government can keep some type of momentum going, I look forward to the next 5 years.
That's really awesome, David. In fact, I can remember and relate to one of the use case that we work using Tableau with CDLE, unemployment insurance claims. What they used to see 200 per day went up to 20,000 per day during the initial days of COVID. So definitely this kind of scalability really helps, across the agencies, and I'm glad.
I think you just answered the question right there. That doing visualizations on unemployment insurance is health data. Like most states classify that as health data, because what you're doing is providing money to individuals that need it, to feed populations, to give people housing, that type of stuff. So most states actually have unemployment in the health stack. It's a different agency inside of the state of Colorado. I would love to come back with you with more examples of Tableau for government in the health space. I'll go find some use cases and I will get them back to you, Srini, so you can share that.
Great, thank you, David. We have a question from Carol.
That's it. That's the health client data.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
There's also a question from Mark Cohen that we can take that one off as well. Particularly saying, like, briefly addressing the tips or stumbling blocks that a Tableau desktop creator might have accessing AWS data.
So you guys can take it. I'll give you my feedback. It's going to depend on where the data is. So when you think about Tableau Online, there's a whole list of plugins to access native Tableau or native AWS services, whether that's Redshift or S3. And so it's got easier and easier and easier. But his question is, what if my data is on my desktop, or what if it's on a file share down the pipe? It's gonna. The answer is, if it's on your desktop, it's gonna be a little bit easier if it's on a server on there, but you're gonna work with your network team. You're gonna make sure that data is either accessible from the cloud, or you're gonna move it up to the cloud. And what we're seeing is a lot of customers are actually moving that data up to the cloud so they can do a lot more with it. But I'll let the other team answer it in their own way in the future as well.
That's awesome. Great. Thank you, David. I know you've been very busy and traveling a lot, and thank you very much for you taking time to do the presentation for us. And this is your second presentation. I remember you did it in 2015. So it's been a great journey, and we look forward to hearing from you more in the future Tableau user group meetings. But thank you again.
No, thank you for allowing us to host. Thank you for inviting us. Tableau is one of AWS's biggest partners, and there's a reason for that, because they have very compelling technology. You guys all know it, and they've changed the game in terms of giving everyday ordinary users the power to manipulate their data and change things with it. So, thank you for having us. I'd love to do it again, and I'm looking for more Tableau use cases, because I'm crossing the country every single day talking with governments, and we saw from the statistics before, there's a lot of governments doing it. We need more governments to come out and say, this is how we're doing it, so the next city can say, hey, Atlanta did it, or whoever did it, I want to do it as well. So thank you for having me, Srini.
Thank you, David. Awesome. So we have our next presentation. So let me, so this is the first in-person and virtual. That's why we are trying to figure out the logistics. So we have our next speaker, Jared Scott, who was a lead solution engineer. Now I think he moved up in the Tableau world. So Jared, I'll let you. I still have the old title. So Jared, I've known him for a couple of years now, and he was a lead solution engineer with Tableau. He's a seasoned IT professional with over 10 years of experience working with data and business intelligence. Before joining Tableau, he was a Tableau server administrator for UC Davis healthcare systems for a few years, and he started helping the customers with implementing Tableau and also their business intelligence journey. Please help me welcome Jared Scott.
Thanks, Srini. I appreciate it. You guys can, we're all in the same room. Just so you guys, if you didn't know, we're all in the same room here. So everybody, if you'll mute your. So for those folks that just joined back in, if there's anybody, yeah, we've got like 17, 18 people here. So we were basically starting to go over the what's new in Tableau that we put out every quarter, every 3 months. So I've already kind of gone over the presentation a little bit with the folks in the room. So I'm going to keep it fairly short. That's all right. Here we go. So I'm going to make this fairly abbreviated because this is just a general overview of what's new in Tableau. And we have another Tableau employee here, Eric Schmidt, who's going to cover something that I think is more valuable for the group that's here. So I'm going to quickly go over this. I've already talked about this to the folks in the room, but Tableau.com is basically everywhere you want to go for anything Tableau related. So if you do have a question about documentation, what's going on, Tableau conference, which is coming up in 2 months, you should go to Tableau.com first for information. The next point is our what's new. Great echo. Trini, is your microphone on? Possibly? Is your microphone on? Okay. Just making sure. So if you're interested in what Tableau releases when it comes to new features every 3 months, you can go to just Google Tableau what's new, and you'll come to our webpage like this one. So this is our newest release, Tableau 2021, 2022.1, which is very, very recent. I'm going to give you some more details about the previous release in just a few minutes, but really quickly want to highlight the big points here on this screen. First is the Workbook Optimizer. So we've had a performance reporter with Tableau for a long time, for years now. And you can look at that reporting, see what's going on. But if you use the new Workbook Optimizer in the newest version, you'll be able to actually see it right there in the browser. So if you're using Tableau Server or Tableau Online, that's what you're seeing in this visualization on the screen. So in the upper right-hand corner, you can see the person that recorded this is going to publish the content. The person that went to publish the content is looking at the workbook before they publish it to see what they can do to make it better right off the bat. So it's just a way for you to understand very quickly what actions to take to improve the performance of your workbook on Tableau Server, Tableau Online. So it seems like there's another microphone that's on. So give me one moment here. So just a quick check.
I believe Carissa has her audio on.
Okay, cool, fantastic. Thanks, guys. I appreciate the bearing with us with the tech check. So really quickly, jumping back in. So the features and functionality of the Workbook Optimizer, it's really cool because typically what would happen in the past is that our customers would create content, really good content, and they would put it out in their Tableau Online or Tableau Server environment, and then things started to go wrong. And then they would run the performance measure, and then they would go back and fix it. This allows you to take that check before you actually publish the content. So all of the Tableau Server admins out there and Tableau Online admins are really going to thank you for that. That's a really big deal. Next is a search experience. So it's pretty generic, just to explain the concept. You know, there's always a global search at the top of the page when you're on Tableau Server, Tableau Online. So if you want to search for content, go there and look first. We've had feedback from our customers in the past that it didn't give them the results they expected. So we're basically working on it constantly, just like Google does, to try to make their search better and better all the time. So go out there and search some content and let us know what your feedback is. The last aspect I'm going to cover with this release is the Ask Data Phrase Builder. So if you weren't aware, Tableau has something called Ask Data. And this is a natural language processing engine we have built into our product. So this is for the customers that are not Tableau creators, that are not builders. They don't know how to use the product. They don't know how to drag and drop into certain spots. They can go and access a data source and just use the Ask Data functionality. And they can just start typing natural language. You could say, what were sales last quarter? And they get a visualization right away. They can get more specific if they want. This addition to the product is a phrase builder, meaning that someone that understands the data set, someone who is more like a builder or a creator, they can go in and start to build phrases for those customers to say, here's a path to walk down with that data set. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to understand the business process. You don't have to understand Tableau. We're going to help get you where you want to go anyway. And you can always offer feedback to whoever has that access as well to say, why don't you add these phrases in? Because I have customers that I know are going to use this later on, and we want to guide them down to a certain path. So the very bottom, there's another little plug for the video that goes over all these aspects at a little bit higher level. And if you go all the way down to the bottom of the page, this covers every single feature we've added. This is extensive, so I'm not going to read these, but you can clearly go in here and find something that applies to what you use Tableau for. So we always have a lot of features and functionality, so please go check it out. At this point, I'm also going to highlight really quick. So Tableau was acquired by Salesforce about 2 years ago, roughly. And so we're more and more integrating all the time. So we have a product called TCRM or Tableau CRM. We're renaming that just so it's clear. It's going to be CRM Analytics now instead of TCRM. So if you ever are curious about what's going on with TCRM, you can do the same thing, Google it. And we have a slightly different look and feel for this, for the TCRM spring release information, but they highlight all the big releases with videos as well. So if you are a CRMA customer, go out there and Google this and watch the details there, because this is more specific. And so a lot of the customers that actually call into our Tableau user groups don't actually understand a lot about CRMA. So I'll just leave it at that. Feel free to explore that on your own. And that too. I'm not sure how much time do I have, Trini? Good. Okay. So I'm going to jump in really quick in a PowerPoint presentation. This is our last major release. So We typically do have this PowerPoint that goes along with the what's new presentation. This is for the last version. The new version is so new, we don't have the PowerPoint yet. So we'll jump into this one really quick because same thing, there's a lot of cool stuff that's there. And I'm gonna move fairly fast because like I said, we kind of lost some time with the technical issues we had. And actually, okay, cool, you can see on the screen there. So I've already introduced myself, I'm not gonna go through that again. This is the what's new highlights for 2021.4. That's just one release back. This is a high level view. I'm not gonna go over this slide because it's very detail oriented. I'm gonna go through the next slides. So share Ask Data viz in Slack. We were acquired by Salesforce. Also, Slack, the company, was acquired by Salesforce. So as soon as they acquire a company, they want to make sure they integrate as much as possible. So what they're doing is making it easier and easier to take your content and share it in Slack. So if you're a Slack customer, this is fantastic. It gives you the capability to get that content out there as fast as possible and wherever your people are effectively. If you're not a Slack customer, that's okay. You can always become one. Just contact the Tableau team and we'll be glad to help you out with that. All right. Metric improvements. So once again, if you haven't actually used metrics before, imagine a dashboard that has a lot of KPIs at the top or somewhere on the screen. Sometimes you have customers that'll look at that dashboard and they'll say, you know, this is a great dashboard, but I really don't need all this. I just need that one KPI. I'm tracking that one number and that's it. You can actually pull that KPI out of the dashboard and track it by itself, independent of that dashboard in Tableau Online or Tableau Server. So we're basically working on improving that because we're adding more and more features and functionality all the time. Effectively, what you're seeing on the screen is that now there's some color coding involved in that. So since you're tracking just one number, one KPI, we actually have red, green indicators to say, is it getting better? Is it getting worse? So we're adding more alerts to that as well. So that way you don't have to worry about constantly checking a certain thing inside of Tableau Online or Tableau Server. It helps you understand what's going on without being there all the time. All right, next up. Editing published data sources. So if you've been around Tableau for a while, specifically the past 2 years, you know that we have that creator level access where you can do anything. You can use Tableau Desktop, Tableau Prep Builder, you can make data sources. So we're adding more and more feature functionality inside Tableau Online and Tableau Server. So you can see on the screen, edit published data sources. You used to have to do everything in Tableau Desktop, but we started building out Tableau Online and Tableau Server. And so this is another step closer to feature parity between Tableau Desktop and Tableau Online. So you're going to see these as we go through online more and more through time. You're going to see more and more features added, and we'll highlight that. Tableau Prep Builder pretty much has feature parity already in the Tableau Online environment because it's a newer product. Once we started making it, we started building it in Tableau Online right away. So we didn't have that long delay because Tableau Desktop is around 15 years old now. So there's many years of development before we started down that path. But anyway, the point here is that the ability to edit data sources, load up data sources, it's getting easier and easier. Effectively, we want you to be able to do everything you need to do or want to do in the Tableau Online, Tableau Server environment. Next up, searching with quick links. So you can see that on the screen, the visualization that's going on there. Someone is searching for certain content and we're adding that search capability, we're making it better. You just saw in the newest version, we're making the search better as well. We're making it very evident what the content is right away, basically giving you the ability to sort down your search right away with what's popping up on the screen and not just seeing a very long results list that you don't really quite understand exactly what the content is. And Ask Data improvements, once again, so you kind of are seeing some of the same similarities between this release and the most recent release. We're making it better all the time with being able to give access to your customers, being able to make the experience better, and being able to turn the access for the data onto those customers, because you have a lot of folks that have business questions. They just can't get access to the data or the dashboards. This is a great way to actually bring their knowledge into the fold, because people talk about the knowledge of the crowd and the power of the crowd. It's like if you bring those folks into seeing your data sets and letting them play with the tools here, they'll learn quite a lot more, and they'll actually teach you also what's going on with the data and their experience. So I'm not going to jump through all these, but there's basically more data improvements, in particular, like table calculations, that kind of thing. We really want to make it what they call business intelligence rather than business science rather than data science, because a lot of people are understanding what data science is and they are intimidated right away because they think there's someone with a PhD here who understands mathematics at a deep level. I don't have that capability. So we're kind of trying to shift that a little bit to business science to say, if you use the tools in Tableau, you don't need to understand all that deep math. You can do it on your own by just digging in with Ask Data, Explain Data, and other visualizations that are on there. Replay animations. So a few releases back, Tableau added animations to help bring the visualization to life even more for the customers. We added a replay button because there are times when someone would make a change in the visualization, the screen would shift, they would get an animation, but then it stops. But some people wanted to see that movement over and over again. So we already have the pages capability within Tableau Desktop, so you can make basically an animation run on its own, but this just makes it easier in the browser. They can just click the replay button and they'll see that motion happen over and over again. And then multiple data sources with geographic layers. Mapping with Tableau is huge. We've had a lot of customers for a long time say, we've got a lot of data and there's a geographic element to that. People can see it on the screen, but when they see it on a map, it really brings it to life. People understanding what they can do, how they're being affected by geographic elements. So we're making it better and better all the time. A few releases back or a few versions back, we didn't have the capability of adding more than a few layers of data in Tableau. We've taken that away effectively and said, yeah, add as many layers as you want. This adds complexity, but it also basically offers a much richer environment, a much richer experience. So if you're going to add a lot of layers, that's fantastic. Just make sure you know which ones to freeze so that someone can interact with that level. That way they get the best experience possible. Copy and paste dashboard objects. So if you are a very proactive Tableau creator, then you've probably done this where you open up a dashboard or new workbook file, you start creating, and then someone says, wow, that's fantastic. Can you make a slightly different version of that? And then you have to start building over and over again. So we're adding the capability to just copy and paste objects more frequently. You already have the capability of right-clicking on like a worksheet and dragging it into another workbook. It just makes copies of everything. So the data source, all that good stuff gets brought over with it. So we're adding more and more capability to make it easier for you guys, including formatting, because formatting takes a long time in Tableau as well. So I see some heads shaking in the room. So you guys have been through this before. We're working on that as well. That's one of the most requested features is formatting ease. So we're working on that at the same time. So like I highlighted already, the what's new resources, there's the website we've got. There's also release notes. So if you go to pull down the newest version of the software, there will be more details that are highly technical, talking about what bugs were fixed, that kind of stuff, or what things have been resolved. You can always check that out. We don't show it during this presentation. And then also the coming soon for future releases. Just same thing. Google Tableau like coming soon, and you'll get a preview as to what's coming down the pipe. And if you're really involved and you really want to get down in the weeds, we actually have a beta program. So if you want to test stuff for us, at some point in the future, just sign up for the beta program. You'll get emails to say, here's a new version, download it, here's a temporary key, and you can play with all that cool stuff if you're into that kind of thing. So with that, I want to say thank you for your time. Thank you for the patience, because clearly we've had some ups and downs, but I have to say, Srini, thank you for inviting me to come in person, because getting out of the house, out of my basement is fantastic. So thank you very much.
Can you check if there are any questions?
Sure, let's check really quick. So there's a chat. I don't see anything there, and Q&A. Let's just ask really quick. Does anybody have any questions in the room or online? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Not that I know of, but we can add it to the list. So that's the good news. So if you go to Tableau's website, same thing. You can basically just request feature enhancements, and there's upvotes and downloads. So if you have a profile there, which you probably do already, if you wouldn't mind, go there and upvote anything you think is valuable, because that kind of feedback, that's what we need. So I appreciate it. Don't see any questions. So I think we're good. So my colleague, Eric, is up next. Eric, you want to come on up here?
And let me.
So, stop. You want the video?
We apologize for technical issues. This is the first time we are doing after so long in person and virtual. So please bear with us. Again, sorry for all the confusion. So our next speaker, let me talk about Eric. So this is the second time, Eric, right? He was here when we did the in-person more than 2 years ago, and thank you for flying out. Today, Eric, he's a lead solution engineer and lives out of Kansas City. And Eric has been in IT business for over 25 years. Prior to his time at Tableau, he was a manager of data and development team for a life insurance company in Kansas City, Missouri. So I think, are you a big Kansas City Chiefs fan? All right. Great, Eric. Congratulations for having won the Super Bowl year before. But hey, thanks for coming over, and we are looking forward for your presentation. Thanks.
Hopefully it wasn't anything else. You're on.
All right. So as Srini said, Eric Schmidt, I'm here from Kansas City, and I am going to talk to you about Einstein Discovery in Tableau. Einstein Discovery is, as Jared mentioned, we were bought by Salesforce a couple of years ago. Einstein Discovery is built into Salesforce. It's a way to, and I'll walk you through what you can do. It's a way to and Jared kind of briefly mentioned this, the business science piece of it. So if not everybody is a data scientist, I'm not a data scientist. It gives you a way of building your own predictive analysis using Einstein Discovery and Salesforce. A drag and drop, really intuitive way to do it. Gives you a lot of information. Prior to beginning of 2022 or 2021, it was all in the Salesforce realm. As part of the 2022.1 release, we brought those in together. So you can see here, this is a dashboard I did for obviously Tennessee, where we wanted to predict what the net income for a group of people would be based on some of the other factors, whether they get broadband assistance, childcare, food stamp, medical assistance, or subsidized housing. So if you give them more food stamps, presumably their net income is going to go up. And TANF, temporary assistance for needy family, the case that I was doing with Tennessee, that was the part of the, it just occurred to me, I may not have turned on my camera, but that's okay. Part of they wanted to reduce the number of people receiving temporary assistance for needy families. So they wanted to factor in how much of this other assistance they could give them. So you can see in this upper right-hand corner, these are the top predictors of the net income of a family. And so this is obviously a Tableau dashboard. It has all the functionality that you would expect with a Tableau dashboard. You can change the parameters. You can change, filter into different counties in this case. So if I want to filter in to this one county down here, you can see the predictors and the data as part of this Einstein prediction change as well. So it's bringing in the capability of that Einstein Discovery, the predictive analytics, along with the visual analytics that you get as part of Tableau that you all have come to know and love. So I'm going to walk you through this. I told Jared that I was doing this live and he seemed shocked. So, and I just did it at my hotel right before I came here. So it should work, but we'll see. So to get to Einstein inside of Salesforce, and you don't have to be Salesforce experts or anything like that, but this little app launcher up here, as part of this, there's a ton of apps that you can get to, but the main one is the Analytics Studio, and I have that already up here. So this is the Analytics Studio. This is where I'm going to build that Einstein prediction. So the first thing you want to do is we're going to create a data set. We're going to upload an existing data set. And what that is this is just the historical indicators. This is the historical data of a group of, in this case, around 10,000 people that we already have data for, just like you would with any other predictive analysis. Even with if you're using R or Python, you still have to have the historical data to predict ongoing data. So In this case, I'm going to do that. And then we'll just upload the file. It's going to take a few minutes to do. Basically, it's just going through formatting it, creating a data set directly into my analytics studio within the Salesforce realm. And you saw how easy that was, just drag and drop. And it should be, there we go, it's done. Was that? So now it has our data set. We just go over and create story. There's not a lot of information here, just a number of rows. It's exactly 10,000. So I'm going to create a story. This is where I'm going to build that prediction for the analytics. So I want to analyze, in this case, I want to analyze the net income. You can see these are all the columns that were in my CSV, and it already picked them in. I want to maximize that. I'm going to go ahead and change this just so I don't get confused. Because I've done this a few times. And then in this case, the creating a story, it's going to give you the insight. So if you weren't interested in the prediction, you could just go in and say, build me the insights. I want you to analyze that data. Just tell me what you can see. When we first started doing Einstein and Discovery and Salesforce, they emphasize this. A lot of times when you're working with your data, you don't know what you have. So it's really good to send it through. You saw how quick and easy this was. You can send it through multiple times to build these predictions. In this case, I build the insights and the predictions. The other thing they always said was always start automated. Automated, it does what it thinks is best, obviously. You don't have to stick with it. You can always go back and edit the story and redo it again, but it's good practice to keep going through that just to get you could train the model that way, that you can refine it and bring in the more insights or data that you want. So in this case, I'm going to do manual, even though I just spent 10 seconds telling you to do automated. So because I'm skipping to the crunch here. So in this case, I'm going to go through and single out just the data that I want it to take into account. Obviously, we can't change some of these, but we can increase the broadband, the childcare, race, take off medical assistance, post-secondary childcare costs. So I want to force it to look at just those factors that I want to analyze to see if it needs to be changed. And then you just create the story. This is doing all the work that a data scientist would do. It's going through, it's analyzing all the historical data, it's predicting out what your net income is going to be for each group of people. It shouldn't take that long. It's going to take a few seconds here, but at the end, you're actually going to get, and I'll show you this, a copy of the R code that is being generated. So one of the other qualms that some of your data scientists that you have on staff may have is, well, we don't know what it's doing. It's doing something behind the box. We don't know what it's doing. You could take this R code, plop that in front of their face and say, go to town, geek. So, while that's going on, I am going to start working on my Tableau dashboard. So to do this, you need to analyze the same data set that you are predicting in Einstein analysis or predictions. So I'm going to go ahead and build a simple dashboard using that data, that same CSV that I uploaded into Salesforce. I had this already, but I had it already in 2 rooms ago, so there we go. And for the purposes of this, it doesn't have to be that intricate. I'm certainly not going to build in all the parameters like I did in the example I showed you at the beginning. We'll just do turn up in that. Let's go see if, okay, so my story is done. And we'll come back to the dashboard here in a second. But this is the story. This is the prediction that we wanted. And you can see the average net income is calculated $668. You can see when net income was highest, child care support was yes, and medical. So that means they're getting that funding on other sources. They're getting a higher net income. Basically, it's pretty intuitive. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on diving into this, mainly because it's fake data. So you're not going to be able to solve all of Tennessee's woes by looking at this story. But you could, the main point is you can go through, there's a lot of analysis that it does, and you can dive into this and really get into it and see a lot of interesting information by digging through this data. A couple of things to remember about this: you can always edit that. And I did this when I first put together this demo. I went through this probably 100 times trying to get it right. I wasn't analyzing too much. I wasn't analyzing the right fields. You can always go through and edit this story, go back and refine the model that it's doing, and you can see it ran through relatively quickly. So you don't have to worry about you're stuck with those first options that you picked. The other thing that I mentioned at the beginning, this is the actual model that it's creating. So down here on the bottom left, if you want to go through and look at that R code, and I barely know how to spell R, so this makes no sense to me at all, but you can see that it generates a pretty robust R script that you can, if you want to analyze it, I'm sorry about the geek comment, but you can also give this to somebody else if they don't really trust your prediction that you're building in Salesforce. So from there, we're going to assume we've gone through, we've vetted it out, we're all good. We are going to deploy this model. And as you can see, that is relatively simple as well. So to get started, it's going to ask me a few questions. I'm just going to take the default. In this case, I'm going to deploy it as a new model. This will be my model name. This one, I learned the hard way this morning. And I'll show you why that's important here in a second. And then this is, as I said, it's obviously a Salesforce product. If you have the Salesforce and if you're familiar with Salesforce and you have your data in there that you want to analyze, in this case, the actual demo that I was doing was part of a larger Salesforce deal. So they were going to keep all of the TANF recipients inside of Salesforce. So all that data was already there. You can analyze that data directly in Salesforce. So, and if you're familiar with Salesforce, when you get a customer or something, you click on that customer, you can see what's called the next best action. So you can see they call in and you can see their net income is abnormally low. You can say, okay, how do I make them higher? The prediction within Salesforce would tell you, I'll give them more food stamps or give them more medical assistance. That'll increase their net income. So you can tie it not just to a large group of people and visualize it. You can tie it to an individual person directly in Salesforce. In this case, we're not going to do that. We're not going to segment it. This is what we want to be able to change. So you remember in that prediction, it showed in the dashboard what you needed to change in order to increase their net income. We want to be able to, all of these are variable, and it's going to say you can't have, or you shouldn't have more than 3, but we're going to ignore that. And then from there, we're going to deploy the model. So again, this is going out and deploying the model, the prediction that we're going to be able to call from within our Tableau dashboard. And that was actually pretty quick. So from there, we're done with the Einstein prediction part. We're now going to go back and finish out our dashboard. So we built the map. The other thing, and this is what the other thing that took me a long time to figure out, all of those variables that you have in that prediction have to be in a sheet within your Tableau dashboard. So if they're not, it won't sync up correctly. So you have to have those all available as well. So we're going to just go net income here, and then we'll go pick out what subsidized housing, medical assistance, food stamp, childcare, and broadband internet. Again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time making this all look pretty because you guys are all probably better at that than I am. But the main part to remember is all of these elements have to be present in the sheet. And then finally, we're going to put these together in a dashboard. So we'll put our map in, put our factors in. Rid of this. Just a little, there we go. Okay, in order to get the Einstein Discovery piece in, we're going to add this extension piece of it. If you're familiar with doing dashboards, you realize the extension's been down there for a while. As part of the 2022.1 release, again, obviously, we've added in the Einstein extension. You can see all the different extensions that are available here. We're going to just search for Einstein and add that in, and then add the dashboard. So, should close. Okay, that was a little abrupt, but what it did is it's going over, it's saying you need to sign into your Salesforce org in order to make sure you're using the right extension. You can see I have a ton of different sign-ins that I use. In this case, I'm going to use the top one that I'm already signed in as. It's going to ask you, are you okay sharing all this data, this connection with your dashboard? We'll allow that. And then from there, you can close that because that's behind that toolbar. I'm not going to worry about it. And then it's going to pop up a configuration. And this is where you configure it. You point it to the, really nice if this went away. Well, okay. So we're going to search for our predictions. These are all the predictions that I've deployed in that org that I just signed into using my Salesforce credentials. You can see here is that new one, 2022-0407. The worksheet and parameters, there's two different ways you can interact with the Einstein prediction and Tableau dashboard. You can do it like a worksheet like I'm doing, or you can build out parameters. So if you want to be able to have the end user switch the parameters based on broadband assistance, medical assistance, so on and so forth, you could build those parameters in as something they can select within the worksheet. And in this case, I'm using the worksheet. And then obviously you have to select the worksheet. The one that I harped on had to make sure you have to have all the data elements in. And proceed, you can see the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different variables that we have built into our prediction. And then just some cleanup stuff. I'm going to add in a $sign just to make it kind of look nice. And then you can see some of the different values that you can. I'm going to leave these all the same, but you can obviously change these to fit your specific needs. And then we'll hit done. I guess I can make this bigger since it's sort of the star of the show. So you can see this is our Einstein prediction. This is the one that we had built into that other one. All that data is there. If I designate our map as a filter, the same functionality that I showed you before is built in. If I want to change the counties, if I want to select, just the southeast part of the state, all those predictions are there. So all of that information, again, it's sending all that data in just for this county and predicting the outcome, the net income in this case. So, any questions for the few people, or Srini, are there any questions online? Oh, Q&A. And the end user create. The end user can create. You have to have a license for Salesforce and Einstein Discovery in order to get in there. I'll pass you to one of the AEs in the room to get you a quote for that if you want. But it does require an additional license. But the main point of this is it doesn't require an R or a Python PhD, as Jared said. You have the ability to do your own predictive analysis. As Srini mentioned, I was a manager of a data team for a long time. It was a life insurance company. And the CEO kept asking me we want to do this predictive analysis. And I didn't have any R or Python people on our staff. Well, if I had this, at least we could have dipped our toe into it and got him off my back a little bit. So instead I quit. But yes, you do have to have that, but it is meant to be built and easily used by your end user. So you don't have to have that data science and knowledge or background. Oh, chat. Okay. Confidence level for predictions. Yes, there are some things built in. Let's see. Yes, I'll just say yes. There's that thing that I glossed over when I looked at the R code. There's a bunch of information in there, and there was actually a warning that I was hoping that you all wouldn't see that was telling me that there is something wrong with our data that you need to go and address. So it does give you a lot of pointers about your data and stuff that you need to look at when you're putting it in. Thank you. Okay. All right. That is all I have.
Thank you, Eric.
Okay.
Thank you, Eric. No, you appreciate you coming over from Kansas, and hope to see you in playoffs. Yeah. And like Eric mentioned, Tableau makes it easy. And I have, if you I have a long journey of business analytics. If you are in this space, Siebel is the first business analytics. So I've started with Siebel and started implementing major implementations. So, and I'm not sure if most of you have used, like, before this versioning, Tableau used to be version 5 version. So I started at version 5. So makes it easier. So like the reason I'm telling this story is, see how data sciences became business sciences, and like how what Eric said, at least some kind of basic predictive modeling. Now, like how I have seen Tableau has progressed with analytics. Now with predictive analytics also going to be pretty easy going forward, and we are very excited about what's coming in pipeline and how users can do this predictive modeling. And that's where the journey goes beyond, right? So analytics, prediction, and prescriptive modeling. So if we can get there, and I'm sure, I mean, I've been doing this for so long that, hey, Tableau can really help us getting there. So I'm very excited about what's happening, and thank you very much. Thank you for being patient. Today this stuff, like I said, first in person and virtual conference, and I'm glad. And last time when Eric and we did this, we had a room full of people. So we are going to have pretty soon, and and virtually, for everybody who is online, thank you for joining, and we appreciate all your support. And like I said, we are merging with second largest user group in this region, so it's going to be Rocky Mountain Tableau user group is going to be the largest for covering multiple states. Again, have a great rest of the evening, rest of the weekend, and looking forward for multiple presentations in future data science. Thanks again.